Hey folks, it's me and John, and we are live. Folks, if you saw the video play, you know that we are here interviewing movers and shakers. And as the Mañana No Mas podcast unleashes almost its 100th interview, which I feel almost silly saying to this person, we are going to invite Jonathan Denwood to the stage and have a conversation with us. Jonathan, this will be episode 99. And I know that you're coming up on like episode 1000 with the WP-Tonic show. So absolute pleasure to have you. If you would, dude, I know that a lot of people see us work together in other places, but you're here with my listeners and viewers. So if you would give yourself an introduction, and I'll let people know who we're talking to.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kurt. But first of all, reaching 90 episode is a great achievement because most podcasts fade out after 10 episodes. So getting to the near the 100 is a great achievement, Kurt.
Well, thank you. I'm 10 times the average.
Yeah, you are. I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We are hosting plus provider. We're going to go into what the plus is about during the show. And I also do about 3 podcasts per week, plus a load of video, plus write a load of articles and everything else, as you know, Kurt.
That part is something I really want to shine on in this episode, Jonathan, and that is, and I'm just going to be blunt because everyone that follows me knows I kind of say what's on my mind. But I see people get a pat on the back or a stage at WordCamp or something for a little bit of work that they do. And then I look at what you're putting out. I mean, I review your blog posts for WP-Tonic. I've almost done 100 shows with you on WP-Tonic and the Membership Machine Show, right? So if we think about just the exposure that you create, not only for WP-Tonic, but for all of these other players in the WordPress space or hosting or SaaS environment, dude, it's phenomenal. I mean, what makes you just continue to push and drive and deliver the content and the level of content that you're able to put out?
Desperation. I don't really want to work for somebody else. It's a bit of this, you know, as an entrepreneur, you're always a bit desperate, aren't you? I think things are going the right way, touch wood. I seem to be making progress. It's much slower and more difficult to get the wheel moving. And I think most people starting on, I've been in business since my early 20s, and it was in retail that I spent over 20 years, and I got into web design and development as a hobby, and then I decided to do a mature degree in the UK in web development and design. It was a hybrid. But so I've always worked for myself, so there's always a bit of desperation about it, unless you've got a very large company. So that's the reality. I don't want to work for somebody, and because I don't want to work for somebody, you're always a bit desperate.
It's so interesting the way that you phrase it. And for those that aren't aware of Jonathan, he does make up words. So I don't know if desperality is a word or not.
Yeah, I think it is actually desperality.
We're going to take it. We're going to take it. We're going to use it.
Should be a word if it isn't it?
I'm going to hashtag that sucker and see if we can't get it to trend after the show.
Yeah, bit like Chocolate Factory.
A bit like Chocolate Factories. You mentioned the UK, and people can obviously hear a little bit of tone. Your accent really isn't all that prominent anymore, by the way. But it's from the UK. What made you choose America in the first place? All the years that you and I have known each other, I don't think I've ever just flat out asked you that. Why are you here?
It's my ex-wife who was an American citizen. We met. She was a ski instructor at Heavenly, and I bumped into her. And that wasn't designed, folks. I literally was out of control, and I wiped out a ski instructor which was a pretty good-looking one. And she just took a fancy for me, and she was off work, and we just skied together, and we kept in contact. And then she got a job with a US base, but they had a UK offices, and it was a merchant bank, and she got a job in London, and she reckoned she never did that because she was pursuing me. She said it was just a convenience, you know. And then we got married, and I was in retailing. I had a small chain of dry cleaners. Well, only one production facility, and then 2 to 3 satellite stores. And I've been doing that in my early 20s. And I was a bit burnt out from it, and I really wanted out. And she wanted to go back to America, back to Sacramento. And I wasn't keen on Sacramento because all her family lived there, and it was too hot for me in the summer. So we decided to move near Reno because it's in driving distance, and we were both into skiing. So it was a good compromise.
Reno's near a place called Dillon Lake, right?
Yes.
That place is beautiful. I stopped there on a road trip once. I just saw it. I made a U-turn and went back to it. I spent a whole day at that lake. I thought that place was awesome.
Well, I've always stayed in the Washoe Valley, Reno, Washoe Valley, Carson City area.
Nice, nice. So I don't know if you know this or not, but George Jefferson used his riches from the dry cleaning industry to move to the Upper East Side in New York.
Oh, well. I didn't get that much from my retail business. I got a reasonable amount, and most of it went to my divorce. So it went to a good cause.
So maybe the beans are back to burning in the kitchen.
There we go.
Those that grew up on 70s TV might be laughing really hard right now. Other people are just confused at the things I say. So let's talk about business ownership. So you own the dry cleaning thing, right? Now you're here in the States. You've said, I don't like to work for other people. Was business ownership always in the cards for you? Or were you like gainfully employed in a corporate job and said, this is a mystery. I don't know why I'm here. I'm out.
Well, I've always had to work because I have dyslexia, and it's very hard to judge level. That's one of the reasons why I got involved in technology. So basically, I have problems with spelling, and I have terrible handwriting, but most of the doctors in America and UK have terrible handwriting. But I didn't have a fantastic experience in the formal educational system. It was pretty brutal. And I kind of left school with no qualifications at all. So it was I basically got into business and always have been in business.
I have a friend that is a scoutmaster in California. He's an old dude. He's like, I think he's 68 this year, but he is a funny guy. He was a C student, right? And now he's a business owner and does pretty well for himself.
I want to point out, sorry to interrupt, but as a mature student, I got a degree, and I've also got AMA, and I've also got an American Associate degree. So I'm the most overqualified dyslexic, but I still feel I couldn't get a job. Apart from menial jobs, I still have this feeling. But the only good thing about it, it's probably totally incorrect. I probably could get a job somewhere in the WordPress community now. But
those folks hate you.
I've got a few people that still like me. Most don't, but I think quite a few people like me. There's a few people that definitely don't, but I'm not at my age. I'm not seeking. I realise you can't please everybody, nor should you attempt to. But my kind of the good point of the dyslexia, it kind of motivates me to work a lot harder than other people.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not lost on the audience the way that you said that, right? I got out of school with no actionable skills and I had to be self-employed. And then you went and listed, an MA and associates and all of these things. I mean, obviously you're educated and you pursue knowledge at a very thirsty rate. When I look at the content that you put out and the way that you keep kind of your thumb on the pulse of things. So I'm familiar with what Hosting Plus is and the WP-Tonic setup, but a lot of our listeners aren't. And we'll get into that after our break. But when I think about that and then how you're able to add so much value from so many other surrounding things, I'll just ask, how much time do you think you spend a week on just staying up to pace, like knowledgeable about the industry and what's going on in there?
Well, I don't think I am actually. I'm just because obviously it's the world of WordPress, but I am not selling direct to WordPress professionals apart from my sponsorship packages and the relationships that I build and the access to people that are good quality developers with the right attitude. It has some benefits to me, but I am not selling directly to the overwhelming WordPress professional market, which I stroke developers, designers, and all the extra jobs involved in the WordPress professional space. I'm selling to end consumers mostly. Because of the type of packages that I'm selling, basically, either directly to consumer through a kind of SaaS model or as an agency model. There's a load of overlap that took me a while to accept. And it really is around the concept of what Hosting Plus is. It took me at least 4 years to really work out that I could, if I was in the WordPress space, I couldn't really sell something as directly similar to SaaS, software as a service, because of the WordPress community and how it works. It's a slightly different format.
When you start to describe that, and again, we're going to cover this very shortly, and stay tuned to this, folks, because this is a really important segment coming up. But in business in general, I think about the age of your podcast, the amount of episodes that you have. I think about how you unleash this Hosting Plus kind of platform, and I would venture to call you almost a futurist in that regard, meaning that you came into these types of markets earlier than other people. Where would you credit that kind of inspiration for yourself? What enables you to think out of the box and see a solution that people haven't identified as a problem yet?
I'm not trying to be funny here. Desperation. Well, no, I'm much more tolerant. I'm used to failure, so I'm much more tolerant of it. Doesn't mean I like it, but if you're somebody that has dyslexia or some neuro condition that makes things some aspects of your life harder, or you've got a physical disability, or you suffer some society problems, whatever it is, either you're going to give up or you're just going to have to accept. You're going to have to try harder, get up, try again, then probably get up again and try again. There's a lot of trying, put it that way.
Yeah. I think about one of my own projects that I treat as a passion project, and you're very familiar with it. I went to market with it and I tried to sell it, and it's still available, but I just feel like I was very early to market with that particular piece. Like every time I try to sell to who the avatar is, who the target audience is, I change the text, I change the pitch, I change the offer. It just doesn't seem to hit yet. And then I realize they don't recognize the pain yet. Like you can sell the pain point or the vitamin, and I've been trying to sell it like a vitamin, and then I try to identify the pain points, but I'm trying to educate and identify pain points for a customer that doesn't recognize the pain yet. It's like you see them struggling and you know you can help them, but they don't recognize their own struggle yet. And I feel like when I look back on WP-Tonic and the work of Jonathan Denwood, like with the podcast, you've been making those episodes for years, almost 1,000 episodes. So you got into that game early and started adding value to the community by letting peers in the community talk.
Well, when I had my original co-host, he actually encouraged me. We're no longer friends, unfortunately, but that was more down to him, really. As well, somebody you don't actually know, and you can hear the first. I think he was involved in the first 80 episodes.
Wow.
Is that I got in it because I came back. I'd gone after my divorce. I needed a break, so I went back to the UK for 6 to 8 months, and I decided, even though I love the UK. It sounds a bit shallow, but one of the problems of the UK is the weather. And one of the nice things about Northern Nevada is you get almost 300 days of sunshine. It's a lot cooler than California because you're 4,000 feet up in high desert. I live in a valley. I don't live in I live near to Lake Tahoe, but I don't live in Lake Tahoe. It's about an hour's drive to Lake Tahoe. But it's a lot cooler for most of the year up here. But you get tons of sunshine, where in the UK, the weather's very changeable, but there's a sustained period of 6 to 7 months where it's just grey, just overcast and drizzle and rain. And I just can't do that anymore.
Yeah. If you grew up in it, it'd be different if you didn't know better. But once you've been exposed to like 300 days of sun, it's kind of hard to give it up.
Yeah, I just couldn't go back to the UK because of that fact. And it does sound a bit shallow, but it does affect you, and it affects your moods when you've got that. If you don't know any better, it doesn't affect you. But so I came back. I've lost the track where I was going with that, actually, Kurt.
It's all right. It was kind of like, just identifying why you're here and your inspiration and what keeps you ahead of making decisions before people recognize that it's a pain or something they need. Let's do this.
Well, I'd just like to finish off market positioning and position a brand. I've got another business that I've been running for almost 5 years. And because of WP-Tonic, and it's got a bit bigger WP-Tonic, I haven't put the amount of effort into the other business. And I've got a partner that's been busy with other things, and I thought we were going to give up on it, but I actually starting to see some progress over the last 4 months with this other business. And it's kind of been semi-dormant for almost, well, I was constantly changing the position, the branding, and it's in the real estate industry, offering service to brokers and real estate agents. And I've been surprised that suddenly I'm starting to get some traction because the industry's in the kind of semi-collapse. But there's still a load of agents and brokers still active. and I just think we're finding better positioning. But looking back, I don't think I could do it any quicker because I just didn't understand the industry. Technically the platform's really good, but I just didn't understand the positioning where I was going to find my unique spot. This all takes a lot of time.
It does. I think back fondly, believe it or not, during that time of the pandemic, I actually made lives almost every day. And the core message was, regardless of what's going on around you, you got to find the opportunities within the obstacles, and that's kind of a play off of what you said about, well, I'm used to failure and I can just keep making tweaks and changes. Because you said you're used to failure, you're not afraid to make tweaks and changes.
Well, and also you got to keep your costs down, and
Yep.
you've got to have some income coming in that allows you to keep. The main thing is to keep in the game mentally and financially. Don't get wiped out mentally, and don't get wiped out financially, so you can keep in the game too. Obviously, you've got to change things because, as Einstein says, would he say the real sign of madness is doing the same thing again and again? So obviously, if something's not working, you're going to have to change things. But it doesn't mean, on the other hand, there are people that just, if it doesn't work in the first few months, they're on to the next thing, where sometimes you do have to give up on something, but normally it's a process of what's the word? Where you slow changes.
Yeah, transitions.
That's not the word I was looking for, but I can't remember it. But you basically got to work on something and do slight changes. But most people give up too soon, or they're forced to give up through financially or mentally. They can no longer do it.
I think about 2 or 3 projects I had shortly after getting married. And so that's stressful, right? Because you're trying to be an entrepreneur and be newly married at the same time. And you've always got that. Now you've got a second set of eyes watching everything you do. And I can remember starting something and, like you said, not seeing immediate results and giving up, and then starting something else and trying to stick with it for a while, but then not seeing the intended results and giving that up. And both of those projects turned into phenomenal ideas for other people to pick up and run with after I abandoned them. And I think that's why I'm so hesitant now to give up on things. People will say I'm overly tenacious about certain projects, but that's because I've given up on things in the past and then seen them take off later. And I don't want to miss that shot when it goes up.
Yeah, I think as long as you can look at the situation, and it's really difficult to really see what is going on. It's very hard, especially when you worked hard on something, even when people that you respect and you ask for feedback and they give you feedback. It's very hard to hear it when you really worked hard on something. Yeah. But you just got to accept it. It doesn't mean you're going to have to accept it straight away or even agree with it, but kind of write it down, put it on the back burner, the feedback you're getting from people that you respect, and then leave it for a while and then have a think about it, leave it, have a think about it, and see if you can see why it's not working and are there small changes or changes you can do around the marketing, the positioning, various things. And does it make sense to you? Can you, after thinking about things, can you see there's some plan of action for you to change it? Obviously, if you can't, then maybe you should give it up. But as long as there is a plan of action and it makes some kind of sense, and you've got the finances and the mental energy to still do those steps, it's better to work on something gradually and then keep moving from one thing to the other, in my opinion. But I'm not saying that, it's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, folks, we're going to jump to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Hosting Plus and how WP-Tonic might be the solution for you and your online presence. You know, when I post edit this, I'm going to put a commercial in here, Jonathan.
All right.
He's like, I don't care.
I don't care.
Folks, welcome back to the Mañana No Mas podcast. We're sitting here with Jonathan Denwood having a really good discussion. Two things that I want to bring up before we get to the next question, and that is Mañana No Mas, mañananomas.com. We provide internet services. We provide corporate coaching and training on leadership, process management, things like that. If you're looking for that type of business consultation where in the end of your process development, you probably end up with a new website, then we're definitely your people to help with that. The other thing to consider is if you're looking for Hosting Plus, which you'll hear us talk about here in the next few moments, Jonathan has a link that he says in almost every show I help him with, and that is WP-Tonic.com/deals. And he has a curated set of plugins and hosting and all kinds of options there for you. I know he's going to be happy that I said that on the show, and we can get to the next to the next question. Jonathan, here comes the point, man. Tell us your inspiration for it and what Hosting Plus actually is.
Yeah, well, there's kind of three concepts kind of come into it. It's basically finding a product that I thought I wanted to get away from the traditional agency model. And funny enough, Matt Medeus and Mark were doing a live YouTube presentation yesterday, and they were talking about this, and I had it in the background. It's the traditional agency model. It's kind of feast or famine, where you haven't got any kind of projects coming up, and then suddenly they all appear and they all want it yesterday. I wanted to get away from that. I was looking at the SaaS model, but my skills, my history is in the WordPress. But I thought we need, let's try to find something in hosting, because hosting in the WordPress space is one of the areas that you have the traditional subscription model, which is very attractive for stability, stable income coming in. So I wanted to do, and I had noticed that some of the people that seem to make some decent money are hosting providers. So I wanted to do something in the hosting space. So I thought there must be a way to be a boutique hosting provider, to be a micro brand in the hosting sector.
Yeah.
Because other industries, like one of my hobbies is I'm into watches, and there's very large established brands in watches, but there's all over the last 10 years, there's a whole sector of micro brands that have appeared in the watch industry. Some of them have become middle brands, and then you got kind of real micro brands, boutique watch providers. So I thought, I've been watching that, and I thought, yeah, you should. I think you can build a micro hosting brand, right?
Yeah.
The other factor is other people in the WordPress space. There's been about half a dozen, maybe. There's probably been a lot more, about half a dozen on my radar that have attempted to build a WordPress product, but have what I call sassified it, and that is a totally created word. But what they've done is they tried to take a WordPress plugin and they've tried to turn that into a SaaS model. Now, some of them are doing okay with it. Others have done okay, but it's always hit a brick wall because it isn't a SaaS. You still have to get hosting. That product still, and what they've done is they've not wanted that core plugin to really work with other plugins because it causes a lot more support tickets. So then they start building additional add-on functionality around it, and it ends up being what I call a WordPress wall garden. So, and what ends up, you don't get any of the benefits of WordPress, which are all these other Lego bricks that you can click together with another Lego brick, which are the plugins to build something that can be customized to your requirements as a business owner. You lose that, but then you lose the benefit of SaaS, which is kind of quasi more reliability, less hoops to jump through. What you end up is the worst of both worlds. You end up with the technical overhang of clicking all these Lego bricks, but also the benefits, but you lose the stability and the one Swiss Army knife concept of SaaS. So you end up with a kind of bit of a Frankenstein. And that's, in my view, that's problematic. So how do you overcome that? Well, the other factor is that a lot of the more premier WordPress hosting providers, they utilize the word managed. And the problem in the WordPress space, the hosting space, is managed has been totally abused. It's got to the stage where it doesn't really mean what I consider. With our base product, our base Hosting Plus, I think we truly do offer a managed WordPress service. And then we've got Support Plus, which adds, and it took me a little bit of time to work out what those boundaries were. How was I going to word it to customers? Where were the dividing lines? Where were the break points? And it's just taken a lot of time and energy to work all that out and work out the procedures, the language, where those break points really are, so you don't give one answer to one customer and give a different answer to the other, because you need a system of dealing with questions that come up on a regular basis, right? So this all takes thinking, work. It's a lot of balls up in the air, isn't it?
It sure is. Because of my experience in other industries, Jonathan, as you were talking, I was thinking of, there's a reason why people hate the car business, and there's a reason why people hate, especially going to like a dealership to get service work done. And that's primarily because somebody can go in and say, I need brakes on my truck, and they might quote that person $500. Someone else will show up the next day with the same truck, and they need brakes on their truck, and it's $780. And it's like in a lot of shops, there's an inconsistency. So over time, they had to come up with flat rate guides and pricing matrix guides and all these things so that things would mesh together better and people would have a similar response or a similar, experience. And so when you think about your version of hosting, and I think we should probably just, in a simplified way, tell people Hosting Plus is you get the hosting, but you also get a curated list of plugins to choose from to do what you want to do with your website. And Jonathan and his team set that up for you. So that's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, it's so we specialize in membership and community focused powered WordPress powered websites. So if you want to build on WordPress something like you could get with Mighty Network in the community space, or if you want to build something on WordPress that can compete with Kajabi, which is the leading provider, or Teachable. I would say Teachable and Kajabi are the two leaders in that space, with probably over half a dozen other providers. But I would say Kajabi, Teachable, Mighty Networks, and Circle they're the four leaders, in my opinion, in the SaaS market. It's an enormous market. Education is still expanding, not formal, but in the informal space is still growing. And there's still enormous opportunities for individuals or small organizations. There's just a host of different people that are utilizing what I call e-learning to either make their business more attractive to or selling their experience to consumers. So we provide a list of plugins that are fully licensed that we provide as a package. Plus we configure it all together. Plus we provide the email marketing backbone, because email marketing, and we set all that up. So saying it's hosting plus is really the right term, because it is hosting, because even in the more expensive so-called managed hosting space of WP Engine or Kinster, or around the $25 to $40 space, you don't get anything. We charge $55, but compared to the SaaS, that's reasonable. But if you pay yearly, it goes down to $35, which is extremely competitive for what you get as a bundle, isn't it?
I can't help but think about the value of the bundle. I mean, if we're just going to be blunt, right? Whether you want to go with LearnDash or you want to go with Lifter, you've got that. Those in the know, you can look at the pricing page for either one of those plugins, and you're going to see that that's hundreds, if not over $1,000 to get into that. And then you've got WP Fusion. If people are going to go build something more advanced and need automation, you include that. And then the CRMs that you put in with Fluent, that whole package, it has value. So when I look at your list and I study the WP-Tonic method, you and I have had this private conversation before. I'm like, I can't believe you don't charge more. But you do offer it at a really good value. And I wanted to make sure our listeners and viewers knew about it and understood the ins and outs of it. Where do you see this idea of hosting plus going over the next year, possibly 2 years, with all the other stuff?
Obviously, with my other company, we're in the process of migrating some of the key functionality that's offered, and we'll be offering and I'll be bringing Kurt on board with this when it's got set up. Our development team are working on it right now, and I'll be adding Fluent Booking hopefully to the mixture, and it will be aimed at the coaching market probably, or aimed at the storm market. The more kind of, I haven't really worked out which of those two markets it will be, but it's a more it will have the marketing automation. It will be a more WordPress with still the ability to add Lego blocks to it if you want, but it will be more kind of a SaaS model, but offer this marketing automation inbuilt with landing pages and being able to send text and the email sequences. So really it's going to be a real direct competitor to Kajabi. So I'll be able to offer a more SaaS environment and but this is all very tricky.
Yeah.
This is not only a functionality question and getting something that actually works. It's about how do you position it. And this is a lot more trickier than a SaaS product, because WordPress isn't SaaS, and SaaS isn't WordPress.
Yeah.
But and there was this movement about turning WordPress into a service, and it's never really taken off, because the positioning, the branding, nobody's really got it really spot on. So everybody's struggling I think my strength is I think I'm one of the few people publicly that's talked about this. I'm sure other people have been thinking about it because I'm not the sharpest tool in the toolbox, but nor am I the bluntest.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are not aware of it. It's a kind of positioning, branding question that hasn't got right. So I've got that, but I'm up to even something more because I'm scheming even more, Kurt. I'm planning to really go up against Buddy Boss and provide a much better solution than Buddy Boss that works with Lifter and LearnDash, but provides an app as well. And I've made progress on that, and I'm on the stage and maybe moving forward on that as well, Kurt.
That's a big jump. For those that are not in the know, there always seems to be this weird thing out there where people want to take their WordPress site and turn it into a mobile app. And there's all these strange, bizarre things that land in my email box that tell me how easy it's going to be with one click to convert my WordPress page into an app. And funny thing, folks, I've tried a bunch of them and they don't work. So it'll be interesting to see how Jonathan can move forward with that and make that an actionable thing for
well, it's fine. I'm trying. I've been trying to find a somebody that I can bring into the team and be a technical founder with me. And I think I found somebody. We're just talking back and forth. And also I found a methodology that will allow us to build a minimum viable. It's going to be a WordPress plugin, but it's going to be linked to our app as well. And we might have found a way of that we don't have to throw a ton of money, so we can build something that will be a minimum viable product and see if we can get it that will work work, but allow us to try the market and then invest more money in adding more functionality and polishing it.
I'm going to ask you a question off the cuff. It's more of a follow-up to the last thing that you were talking about with SaaS versus the WordPress environment. And it's this. So beyond the work I do with Lifter LMS and the way I help you at WP-Tonic and Mañana No Mas, I run the WordPress meetup in Hutchinson. And just last night, I was talking to a gentleman who is trying his best to build what he wants in Squarespace. I have other people in town using Wix. I have people asking me about Shopify stores. And it seems like, and I have clients that are also in Kajabi and stuff. So I have some working knowledge of these platforms. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of flexibility. You and I always say things like WordPress gives you ownership, digital sovereignty, and flexibility to build what you want. And then there's all these people using these SaaS tools without a lot of flexibility and freedom. So why do you think it is that people come to the WordPress marketplace, and whether they have paying clients or not, when they're building a new course website or a new membership website, they are so focused on what they want to customize or change or implement rather than just launch their platform and see if a minimal viable product creates revenue? What do you think?
Well, I think it's WordPress. I think a lot of the people that we deal with, I understand them, and they have a tendency to overdo it. Where the other people, I think WordPress, because of what's happened with page builders, what's happened with Gutenberg, what happens in general in the WordPress marketplace, it's not it has and I think that's what I'm trying also. Obviously, I'm trying to make a decent living, but I think you. I don't know. I don't expect you to say yes or no. I'm not in this to become a millionaire. I'm just in here so I can secure a reasonable future for myself, and I just don't have to work for somebody else. They're my two main objectives, Kurt. And I have a reasonable retirement. I'm not looking to become a billionaire, but I'm also, I think, with these kind of hosting plus niche providers in the WordPress, I think we're going to have to offer a more solidified solution, but avoid a total wall garden scenario.
Yeah.
We just got to find that sweet spot where we're giving more, we have more control over the situation and more guidance. And I think we're getting that with WP-Tonic and Hosting Plus, that, you know, we have a couple of clients that haven't listened to us or in the past have kind of thrown every plugin and service onto their website, and it leads to a really hot mess. But they gradually, you know, some of them we lose and they just blame us and they go off, and then they're probably trying different providers. But others are stuck by us, and then they gradually learn the hard way and they start listening, don't they? And they gradually kind of control them. But it is difficult because I don't, when you look at a lot of our customer base and you wonder how are they going to cope with something like Wix or Squarespace, where they have no flexibility, do they?
No, that's the part that is so dumbfounding. You'll see someone say, well, I'm so frustrated, I'm just going to go and put my course in Kajabi. And I think to myself, you're going to move to Kajabi, and you were the one that wanted to change these buttons, change this layout, custom dashboards, you know, all these things, automations and tags and CRM integrations. And I'm like, and you think it's going to be easier in Kajabi to get what you
I
want?
think they're mixing. It's just occurred to me, and I just want your feedback. I think they're mixing two things up, because they're mixing, because they get sucked into all this customization at the wrong moment, because it's obviously everything has its right time, and they're just trying to do all that too early. But then they know they need to get launched. So there's two things working in two different directions. So that builds frustration, and that's why with my other podcast, the Membership Machine Show, this is why I'm always going on about bootstrap startups. Why I'm always going on building the minimum viable course. Just like the minimum viable product, the minimum viable course. I'm always going on about it, aren't I? I'm getting a bit tedious, aren't I? Because I think it's you. If you accept that concept that you're there to build the minimum viable course, get something that's reasonable, but you've got to get it out there and start marketing and trying it. It gets you in the right mind place, so you don't get sucked in and then reach this frustrating point where you chuck it all in and go into something that's even more confining, which is called Kajabi.
Well, I want to move on, and I want to address. Well, first, I want to thank you. I'll thank you publicly. You've turned me on to a couple of what we'll call leaders in business and industry. One of them is Rob Walling. You know, I was on the show with you when we interviewed Rob, and he was gracious enough to send us both copies of his book as it was getting released. I read the stinking book, and then I actually put it in an audiobook and re-listened to it with his voice riding my bike. And I followed his podcast over the last year as well. So that's an example where your tie to the community and the industry and your connection to leaders in the space has really been a benefit to me. Who else would you consider, you know, thought leaders in business and leadership, whether it's in WordPress or any other industry?
Well, on my list was Rob Rowling, because, you know, he does the podcast Startup for the Rest of Us, which I mercilessly copy a lot of his ideas. But I do say I am honest about it, aren't I? I say, well, I've just copied Rob's framework and applied it to the members, because I honestly do believe that Bootstrap, a lot of the concepts that he goes for in his podcast, Startups for the Rest of Us, I think you can apply to starting a membership course-based e-learning business in 2024, right? And he does the micro conference as well, which I was thinking of going to, but I didn't, because I've got other things to pay for and that. The other one, who's actually coming on the Round Table show in July, actually, again, is Jason Cohen, the founder of WP Engine. Jason, like Rob, they're personal friends anyway. Rob invested in Jason's company in WP Engine, made a ton of money. But Jason is one that I've been following. Jason, like Rob, for donkey's years. I got into the both of them around 2010, 20. I didn't read that worded actually, folks. I started following them around 2011, 2012, and they're both highly influenced me. And I would say I'm not close friends to them, but I'm more than, I would say they would be happy to say I was more than an associate. I would say I'm friends with both of them.
Yeah.
And they're just two great guys, and they're very knowledgeable, and they're not pushovers. They're both hardcore business types, but they are still both generous in what they do for people. They haven't become totally cynical and bit of arsehole types, which a lot of business people do, because it's so difficult to get a successful business. The amount of crap you have to deal with, you can become very cynical and very bitter. Both of them are still generous and haven't allowed that process to happen to them.
Keeping your sense of humility as you grow and expand is a challenge. Remembering where you came from and extending grace to people, that's a challenge all the time. I wasn't that good at it 15, 20 years ago, Jonathan. It took a lot of time, a lot of reading, and a lot of study to be able to give people some patience. And you can tell that when
it's one of my weak. I do care, but I am not patient. I am blunt. But I can be reasonably caring as well. But I can be. My mother came from Yorkshire. She never lost her York, and Yorkshire people are in England. English people in general are more blunter. Well, some people would say they're not. Some Americans would say English people aren't. They are more polite in some ways. But my mother came from Yorkshire, and Yorkshire is notorious for breeding very blunt people. And she was extremely blunt. And I think that rubbed off on me a bit, to some degree. I just prefer people to be honest with me. There's a different, but that's not excuse for rudeness.
No, I would describe people from the UK as being delightfully cutting. Like, they're very polite when they insult you.
Yeah.
I have a friend I used to work for at Ducati, and he's got a knack for just saying it and just spitting it out with a smile and you not getting pissed off. But he's just summed you up and given you a critique.
That's the thing I miss. I still have my UK family, and I still kept in touch with about 2 to 3 UK friends. And that's the main thing I miss, is the English humour. There are a few Americans that really get English humour and quite like it. There's a lot of that don't. And I really miss that banter and that back and forth. And a lot of English people, they like a good argument and they're okay with it, where a lot of Americans, it's got to the stage that you can't really talk to people. It's not worth the aggro, and you're marked as a degenerate if you don't agree with them. And it's just not worth the aggro. Where in Britain, I'm not sure if that's changing in Britain. It probably is. But a lot of, not all, but a lot of British people, you can still have an argument with them and still keep your friendship. And I've always liked a good discussion, because most things are grey. There's only a few things that are really black and white. Most stuff, it's just an honest opinion, and could go either way, could it? It's mostly I've mostly found that it's only arseholes that really think that everything's black and white, aren't they? They just haven't learned anything.
Yeah, you got to be a little pliable, at least open to concepts. I might not like it or truly believe in it, but I'm always open to hear what someone's got to say. And I see that in you too. So I think that's one of the reasons we get along so well. One more question before we go. And this one is, so we've already identified you as, ongoing self-education, a mover and shaker in the industry, almost a futurist with your business, and the amount of content you create is formidable. So we've established, okay, the professional side, we got a picture of Jonathan. But dude, what do you do away from the desk that gives your life a sense of balance, or that thing that quiets your brain when you've had enough?
Yeah, it's kind of but it only covers like 3 to 4 months of the year. So I do like skiing. I like getting out in the mountains and skiing.
Have you gotten better since you met your ex-wife?
I actually became a better skier than her. I don't go down many blacks now. It's mostly around the grooms, bonning around, and then the occasional black. I do kind of, when I warm up, look down and think, oh, well, hopefully my medical insurance will cover a broken arm. Yeah, but it's mostly fast. I do like bombing around fast. So I do that. I do like walking in the countryside around here. I try and keep myself reasonably fit, and I walk about 5 to 6 miles a day. First thing in the morning and in the evening when it gets a bit cooler. So it's a between 3 and 6 miles a day. And skiing, and I've got a slight hobby around watches. I'm fascinated by time, and I keep away with it because I've spent too much money on watches. I've sold a few, and I tend not to wear. I have about 2 to 3 very expensive watches, but I don't wear them because I'm scared of getting mugged. So I'm probably going to sell those because there's no point. And I've just bought really cheap homage watches, so it doesn't matter. But problem is, I still probably get mugged because they probably won't know the difference. So I'll still probably get gun whipped. So who knows? But yeah, so it's that. But all this stuff. I like podcasting because I was a big kind of self-educated me, because when I was at school, my father was quite successful, but he came from a very working class background. My mother did. My father was pretty successful in business, but they were very traditional English as well. So they just left my education to teachers, and these teachers just kind of beat the shit out of me all the time. Because one look at me, because I was always pretty bright, but couldn't get the results that they were looking for. So they started hitting me quite a bit, which isn't nice, is it, Kurt? Is it?
Old school, man. Old school. Only old people like us remember that.
Oh yeah, they used to cane me left, beat me left, right, and centre. And so that kind of makes me a little bit of a rebel, really, because I've sampled a bit of authority and. But on the other hand, I think people do look for leadership. I think if you get a group of people, and in a business or in the army or whatever, so they know who should be running it. I think there's agreement about who's the right person, or he or she. I think everybody knows in the organisation who not only does the talk but can do the actual work. Yeah. And on the other hand, they also, a non-psychopath leader knows that he needs a break, or he needs to move on to another part of the business and offer opportunity to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because who wants to do the same thing all the time? If you're an open person, you've got confidence in what you're doing. It's all these people that got personality problems and that. But most organisations, there's this fear of of kind of quasi-openness and quasi-democracy, but most organisations know the people that can do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you agree, or do you think I'm misleading?
No, I totally agree. And it's amazing how quickly a group of people can identify a leader in a group. It's think about the selection of a jury. They go into the jury deliberation room. There's 12 people in a room, and within 10 or 15 minutes, that group of people will pick one or two people that are going to lead that jury.
I got that ear. I think I've been told I got that kind of ear, but I actually don't want to do it anymore because, because it's aggro, isn't it?
It's a burden.
It's a pain in the arse being the leader, actually. And I think that's if you've got people that you're on the right person, it's these people that need to be the leader. They actually need it.
Yeah.
That's a problem when you really, really, I just, I've had a few occasions where I've had to take a leadership role because otherwise we're all going to go down the shithole.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want to do it because it was painful. It was really painful, that leadership role. I didn't really want to, and I certainly didn't want to keep on doing it after we got over a crisis. I wanted to get rid of it as quick as possible.
Yeah, delegate it and move on.
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, I want to thank you, man, because the time that you've given us is super valuable. And it was nice. Here's what was nice about today's time with you, and that is just putting the shoe on the other foot. You offer the spotlight to so many people in the space, and rarely do you get to be in the spotlight. So it was fun to get to know more about you and share you with our listeners and viewers. How would you prefer people to get in touch with you if they're new to Jonathan? How would you prefer them to make a connection?
Well, look for the WP-Tonic podcast show. Go to iTunes and look that up. You can follow me on Twitter, at Jonathan Denwood. Or you can join the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. There's a load of stuff always being published on there. I think I haven't got a big enough audience really, but I think I've published 1,000 videos on that channel.
That is, that's one of those weird things about YouTube. There are a ton of talented creators with less than 1,000 subscribers, and they might have a ton of views, but people don't subscribe. Yeah. So if you go and you like it, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell, all those things. Do it to the Mañana No Mas channel as well. I'm up to 84 subscribers now.
Well, yeah, you told me, because I think I'm up to 1,600 now. But I've got to tell you, but also a lot of people buy users, to be quite truthful about it.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, I kind of don't get enough. But a lot of them, but they're the main areas. If you want to follow the show and follow me, Twitter, the podcast, YouTube channel.
Excellent. And don't forget to visit wp-tonic.com/deals. That's all you're going to get from that page.
And then we've got our course page. We've got the wp-tonic.com/course. And if you want to learn how to build a WordPress based membership website using Lifter, Cadence, all the modern Lego bricks, it's really inexpensive. Kirk actually developed the course. It shows you from the beginning to end how to build a membership website on WordPress. Go there, buy it, and it will save you a ton of aggro and time.
Absolutely. Jonathan, thank you so much.